start recording. And hello, friends. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. You are in the right place. We are going to be talking about all the things homeschooling tonight, and excited to have folks on the line with us. People are welcome to introduce themselves in the chat. We would love to hear your name, your location, and your kids' ages if you want to share. We would love to know that. So welcome, welcome, and welcome. Okay. Great. Yep, we're gonna get started around 8:35. Have about 675 folks registered for this call tonight, so we wanna make sure we don't leave them behind. And that we can all travel together for the next hour. So yeah, people are welcome to introduce themselves in the chat. If you wanna share your name, where you're from, and the ages of your kids, if you so choose to accept that invitation. Okay. Right on. Welcome. Okay. Give folks just 2 more minutes to jump on, and then we are going to get moving. Yes, all the intros, love it. Hi, friends. And a bunch of educators too. Awesome. Great. Well, everybody, welcome. Welcome to Educating Your Kids at Home, support for transitioning to homeschooling in a time of crisis. We are super, super grateful for folks to take the time to join us virtually. I know some of us are already profoundly overdosed on Zoom in the last 2 weeks, so we appreciate you joining us in this virtual space. My name is Kate Shapiro. I'm the organizing director for the Women's March, and I'm going to be helping sort of moderate this panel of excellence, amazing feminist parents and educators tonight. So where we're going to be going tonight is that we're going to do a little welcome. That's what I'm doing right now. Talk a little bit about sort of this moment. And then really the vast majority of our conversation is going to be hearing from our panelists, who I'm about to introduce. Then we will do a Q&A, and then close in terms of next steps and resources and all of that. Just want to say that in terms of the panelists, we pulled together a panel of veteran home educators to help you navigate the transition to educating at home in whatever form that ends up taking for your family. This live webinar is going to feature 4 feminist moms with decades of homeschooling experience between them, and that they're going to get into the nitty-gritty of advice, recommendations, and most of all, reassurance on the many different ways that homeschooling can work. I'm going to say y'all's names. Maybe if you could give a little wave when I introduce you. We've got L.A. Kauffman on the panel, who is a Brooklyn-based author and organizer who homeschooled her twins for 12 years. We have Shalawn Facey, who's a Brooklyn-based doula, midwife assistant, and lactation counselor, right on, and longtime homeschooling mom to 2 children, grades 8 and 12. We also have Farrar Miles Williams, who's a DC-based former classroom teacher and current curriculum developer who has homeschooled her 15-year-old twin since kindergarten. And we have Wicks-Lim, who's a veteran grassroots activist and homeschooling mom to 2 kids, ages 8 and 15, and based in Western Massachusetts. So We are super lucky to have y'all tonight. I'm going to just tell a little bit more about the Zoom, and then we're going to get all the way in. For folks that just joined us, we are welcoming you. And if you haven't already introduced yourself in the chat and said your location, your name, and the ages of your kids, we invite you to do that. So for Zoom, we know that there are some folks that are on the video, other folks that are on the phone. We welcome you in all of your forms. You will be muted for the duration of this call, but we do encourage everybody to use the chat. The other thing, because there are so many people on the call, is that we encourage folks, when you have questions, to go down to the bottom of your screen and drop those in the Q&A. So if you click on where it says Q&A, a screen's going to pop up, and you can put your question in there so that we can do our best to be able to consolidate those and track those and get those answered for you. We're not going to be able to track everything in the chat because that's kind of where it gets really exciting and popping. This call also is going to be recorded, and resources that are mentioned here can also and will also be sent out after the call. So that is that. Just I want to say a couple of words from the Women's March, and then we are going to get into the panel. Oh, we're going to do a poll first after I do a little bit of framing. But just to say that given the existing and increasing threat of the coronavirus, the Women's March understands that many women in our constituency will be feeling overwhelmed, isolated, and unsure of where to turn to for tools and support. We feel that too. And that many of you have been tasked with the next to an impossible expectation to begin educating your children at home overnight in what is already an extremely, extremely, obviously unprecedented and stressful time. As we well know, women already shoulder most of the work of child rearing, elder care, housework, emotional labor, and much more, all of which have become even more challenging in the age of coronavirus. And now women will be doing most of the work of supporting their kids' home education as well. Some families are getting great support from teachers in schools, but too many are getting little or no resources or guidance. That is certainly the case here in Georgia. This transition has been abrupt and stressful for everyone involved. Unrealistic expectations on parents and kids are adding unnecessary pressure on many families, and widespread myths about when and how kids learn aren't helping. Progressive homeschoolers have long embraced a variety of flexible approaches to home education, which start from a belief that children have an innate desire to learn and can thrive intellectually and emotionally in many different educational settings. That is true. So what I'm going to do right now for those that are on the phone is I'm actually going to launch a poll. This is a jazzy feature that we're just learning about. And you're going to have a pop-up on your screen for those that are on the computer. And there's going to be 5 questions to answer. So you'll have to scroll down to see the questions. I'm going to give us about 90 seconds to fill this out. But these are just some questions so we can hear and share about who's on the call, how's it been going, and be able to get a better sense about where we're all at, knowing that we can't all talk to each other on this platform. So I'm going to launch this right now, and you should see it pop up. The title of the poll is, how's it going over there? So I'm going to give folks 90 seconds to fill that out. If people have questions or needs, you can put those in the chat. Great. Thanks, friends. It's happening. Cool. About 45 more seconds. Awesome. Love it when it works. Very cool. About 30 seconds, friends. Cool. All right, last 10. If you want to get it in, now's your chance. Oh, people are. Okay. I'm going to publish these results. All right, friends, I'm ending it. I'm closing it out. Okay. There we go. I'm going to share these results right here so people can see. I'm going to read them out loud for folks that couldn't see it. But for the first question, how has homeschooling been going for you so far? Overwhelming response, up and down. 47% of y'all said up and down. 25% said more bumpy than not. 15% said pretty well. 10% said really rough, and 4%, who are y'all, said super smooth. Blessings. That's amazing. Great. If people didn't participate, that's totally fine. The second one is, how would you describe your overall stress level this week? At 43% said somewhat higher than usual. 32% said super high, really high. 13% said through the roof, and 14 of y'all said same as usual. All right. The third one is, how would you describe your kids' overall stress level this week? 54% said somewhat higher than usual. 31% said same as usual. 17% said really high, and only 1% said through the roof. How would you rate the support you and your kids have been getting from their school and teachers? 56% said good. 25% said excellent. 22% said minimal or disappointing, and 6% said school is completely closed, no support being offered. I'm like, I wonder what states y'all are in that said good. And then the fifth one is, which of these best describes how you and your kids are getting along these days? 67% said pretty well despite some tension. Amazing. 22% said extra close, lots of connection. 15% said bumpy, a lot of distance or tension, but nobody said not well at all, which is amazing. So that kind of gives us a little bit of a temp check around where folks are at. So I'm going to pull that off the screen. And I am going to kick it over. Thank you for participating in that, everybody. Kick it over to our panelists to get us started. Everybody's going to be talking for about 5 to 7 minutes to share some overall perspectives, and then we're going to get more into the question and answer. So I believe, and I'll be keeping time for you, friends. So I believe it's you, LA, to kick us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Kate. Welcome, everybody. I'm really delighted to see all these names popping up in the chat box and where all the places that people are from. It's really wonderful to have you all here tonight. And I'm heartened by the overall responses from the poll. Very concerned about the percentage of you who are really struggling, and I'm glad that you're here and looking for help and reaching out for help, the folks who are really having a rough time. But glad to hear particularly the responses to the last question, that so many of you said that you're getting along pretty well with your kids. And that's one of the messages that we're going to be making front and center in this webinar, is how important connection is with your children right now. You clearly all know this already. We're not telling you something that you don't know, but anxiety about education can really get in the way of that. And we're hoping to alleviate some of that anxiety in the service of helping you really emphasize connection in this time of crisis. So first off, just so much respect for all of you for what you're doing. We are all on this panel, moms who have homeschooled, but what we did was really different from the choice that we make is really different from the choice that was forced on you, and we homeschooled under really different circumstances. So we're offering this advice with humility that we're not living through exactly what you're living through right now, and our experience is not a perfect match for the challenges that you're facing. We're trying to offer what we can because we think we have some useful perspectives, but you know, we all chose to educate our kids. It wasn't forced on us. Um, Many of you have likely been laid off or are facing really accelerated economic pressures right now. Some of your family's laid off, maybe but you're caring for other people in your family. Um, Everyone is anxious and worried about this pandemic. Um, you have, you know, you didn't make a decision on your own that school, traditional school wasn't working for you and opt for something different. Um, uh, and also, you know, there's a lot of myths about what homeschooling is and what it looks like. We homeschoolers don't typically do most of our schooling at home. It's a myth, and it's a myth that's built right into the name of it. We, you know, usually are out in the world doing all kinds of things that people can't be doing right now. Using institutions that it depends on where you are in the country. I'm in New York City, you know, people can't, the public libraries are closed, the museums are closed, the playgrounds are dangerous, you know, all kinds of resources that had been supports and crucial supports to, certainly to me and my family when Amir's and I were homeschooling, are not available to people right now. So, so the fact that you've gotten through a week or 2 weeks of this and things are going pretty well with your kids, and for many of you it's up and down, but there's up and it's not all just down, like really take a minute to appreciate what an accomplishment that is. It's really quite extraordinary. And uh, there's a so even though the situation that you're facing is really different from the situation that from the kind of homeschooling that we all did, there's a concept that I want to share that is commonly used and discussed in homeschooling circles that may be helpful for you, which is the idea of deschooling. So a lot of us chose to homeschool because there were things about the traditional educational system that weren't working for us. But so even if you are someone for whom the school has been working pretty well, you're in a totally different situation now. And there are assumptions and structures that are associated with traditional school that aren't going to work that well for you. A crucial one is time management. I have seen a number of moms posting on social media about, you know, my child only spent an hour doing schooling today. How is she ever going to keep up? Um, a lot of the school day in a traditional school is taken up with a lot of kinds of things that you don't have right now. Managing 30 kids in a classroom, the traffic flow from here to there, getting everybody on the same page, the teacher working with students with different needs. When you're working with your kids, it's one-on-one, it's very focused. And, or when your child is working on their own assignments, I see there's a real range of ages here in kids. So one of the things that we want to emphasize is that as you begin to develop your own sense of what this looks like in your family, let go of arbitrary expectations about how much time you need to spend doing what is schooling, and especially what schooling looks like. We heard from the poll that there's a range that a lot of you are getting good support from your schools, but some are getting not so much. And I think from what I heard, even in the earlier grades, in particular, you know, most parents aren't being sent home like a package of activities that fills up the day. So step back and look at what kinds of things are engaging your child right now. A lot of families are finding that that whatever is being sent from the school is taking up a very small amount of time, and then they worry that their kids aren't learning. And it's really okay. Part of the idea of deschooling is that a big transition from a structured to an unstructured learning environment, you need to give it time. You need to allow that there's going to be time to adjust, time to relax, and allow your kids some time to just feel your love, feel connection to, I see somebody saying in the chat that their school hasn't issued anything yet. So with the little ones, I'm going to wrap up in just a minute, but with the smallest children, it's really fun. Children learn through play, and really just helping support your kids' play right now is a great way to be supporting them intellectually and emotionally. Kids of all ages reading together is a great way to be supporting them intellectually and emotionally. This is not a time, especially right now in this time of transition, we don't know how long this is going to last, to be worrying about conventional benchmarks of achievement. Kids are resilient. They'll get through this. They'll learn what they need to learn. And the most important thing right now is for them to feel secure and loved. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to the next panelist.
Fantastic. Thank you, LA. And if people have questions, remember you can be putting them in the Q&A so you don't forget it with all this good content. So yeah, it's you, Farrar.
Hi guys, I'm Farrar, and like Kate introduced before, I've got 15-year-old twins who I've always homeschooled, but I've been on both sides. I used to be in the classroom. I just want to like really echo what LA said about those expectations and adjusting them. When I talk to people who are new homeschoolers, a lot of the time the biggest hurdle in understanding is, you know, just to understand that there is no like one moment that kids have to be learning a certain thing or a certain skill. It's not like you can only learn about the Revolutionary War in spring of 4th grade. I mean, that's not a real thing. And I see a lot of worry like about that among new homeschoolers often, like, but the kids in school are supposed to do blank. But the reality is, I mean, there's not one moment that kids can learn certain things, certain content or certain skills. And so you can throw all that out the door, you know, especially if the school has not sent home a lot of things. It's fine to just sort of toss that out. And as homeschoolers, that's certainly not what we do. We don't try to keep pace exactly with some outside concept. It's okay for you and your kids to determine exactly what you want to prioritize in terms of what you're going to be learning. I mean, you don't want to not expose them to education. You want to provide resources and so forth, but give yourselves a break. I really also second the deschooling sort of mentality as you enter into this. It's a transition, and it's going to take time. So definitely give yourselves time. And I think also, you know, it's wonderful to hear that lots of schools are providing good support. Like that makes me really happy. But also, it's okay if everything that the school sent doesn't all work for you, because it is different, you know, and they threw this together. It's not their fault. They threw this together at the last minute. And so some of the things may turn out to be perfect for some families and not others. Some may turn out to be really impractical. Some may turn out to be too little or too much. And I would just say also it's okay to push back on the school. You know, they're not, I mean, elite colleges are ditching their grades for the spring semester and putting everything pass fail. And a lot of places, you know, for college students are just throwing that out. And I think, you know, it's not fair to sort of say to your 6th grader, but you must finish this, you know. when we're all recognizing for ourselves that we've had a productivity slowdown. So I would just say recognize that for your kids too. It's okay to pick and choose those resources, and then to push back on the school if they're trying to make things count, and also to use your voice to speak up for people who maybe can't do that for their kids, but who maybe have less access to resources and time and, you know, things like that. In terms of resources, one of the things that I've seen, just even with my homeschool friends, is that there's such a wealth of resources pouring in. A lot of people are donating amazing, cool things. You know, people are seeing like Mo Willems is doing drawing lessons, and Patrick Stewart is reading Shakespearean sonnets every day. And, you know, and these things are so exciting, but it's okay if you don't take advantage of every opportunity. I feel this a lot as a homeschooler, this sort of tyranny of opportunity with things, that that can start to be a pressure all itself. So it's okay if, you know, if some of those things that you're hearing about that are super cool, that you don't use them, that's fine. And I would say also, as I'm seeing a lot of people coming in to homeschooling. I read a lot of the statewide level groups for homeschoolers. And so I'm seeing a lot of new homeschoolers because the school isn't supporting them, or they're making the transition to homeschooling because they think that school is not going to be a safe place for a while and may not reopen for a while. I would say if you do make that and you decide to sort of make your own curriculum, or you want to dive in with that to avoid, especially right at the beginning, jumping in with some of these corporate online schooling solutions. You know, they could be right for some people, but just be really cautious about them. They're really recruiting hard right now. And, you know, they're very basic video and a quiz. And I think, you know, some of my fellow panelists, Allie talks really smartly about how magical and wonderful homeschooling can be. And so I think you may or may not capture that wonderfulness of homeschooling, but those sort of really basic online schooling solutions probably won't help you get there. And then the same thing too, because if you're entering into homeschool resources, that you should be alert and aware. We're all feminist moms here. There are a lot of Christian homeschool resources, and some of them have perspectives that are probably not right for your family. And so just be aware of that as you evaluate resources, that if they're coming from a homeschool perspective. For older kids, I think, you know, be checking in with them about if their high school is requiring things and what that looks like. And if they're transitioning to doing those things online, that is just so different from being in a traditional school schedule, that they're gonna need a lot of extra support. And that even for high schoolers, it is okay to push back on the school if they are asking for too much. And so that's, you know, that's a thing that you should be alert and aware of. And the last thing I was going to say, because I'm running out of time, is just keep your routine simple. You know, I think LA mentioned these elaborate schedules that all of us have maybe seen posted online. You know, try to dial back from that and keep your routine really simple and flexible at this beginning stage. You know, be understanding of your kids and this adjustment for yourself too. Thanks, guys, and I'm sure we'll answer more questions.
You sure will. Thank you. Farrar. Shalawn, it's you, friend.
Hi. So I'm a homeschooler in Brooklyn, New York. I have two children, an 8th grader and a 12th grader, and we've always homeschooled. And but I also work, right? And I noticed this comes up in the Q&A, there were some parents that kind of talked about how do you balance the work and school, and it can be challenging. It can be very challenging to kind of focus on your work and focus on making sure that your child is getting educated. But I would say in the beginning, just for now, breathe, right? Like that's what I always want to say, just take a moment and breathe. and know that it'll happen and it'll work out. It'll work itself out. I think the way to start this is to sit down and figure out what's going to work for your family. So I know some of you have schools that are giving you curriculums, and great, that's wonderful, because that kind of takes a lot off of your brain to have to worry about, and you can just kind of make sure that they're getting those things done. But a lot of you schools are not providing anything, and so now you've kind of been pushed into this role of being a homeschooler and figuring that all out. And I think what you might want to do is, once you've figured out what you're going to do in terms of teaching your child, you want to sit down and figure out what's going to work for your particular family, right? What's going to work for you, what's going to work for your child, what's going to work for your household. And then from there, you can take the steps to kind of figure out what homeschooling is going to look like for your child. One of the first things I want to say is, we all know that children do not have to be learning 8 hours in the day, right? Like, that does not have to happen. That's a myth. And LA touched on that a little bit. It's okay. Give them breaks. You need breaks. They need breaks. Take breaks throughout the day. Take a time to just kind of relax and not even think about it for a little bit, and then get what needs to get done. The goal is, as long as they're learning and they're growing, and when you look at what they knew last week to what they know this week, and they've learned a little bit more, then you've accomplished something. I think the biggest thing that we can do for ourselves is to be gentle with ourselves, right? Not to give ourselves too much of a hard time and think that we can't do this. I think that a lot of times we just get caught up, and it can be overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. And I honestly feel for a lot of you that this is just kind of all new, right? Out of the blue, you had your steady work, you had your schedule, your children were going to school, they had their schedule, you saw them in the evening, you did homework, and that was kind of what your schedule was. And now you're working from home, they're home, they've got to get their work done, you've got to get your work done, and it's a lot, and it's stressful. And I feel for you, because that's a lot. Like was mentioned before, I made the choice to homeschool. This was something we always knew we were going to do, but this is something that a lot of you, this was not your choice. So I would say, breathe, take a moment, figure out what's going to work for you and your children, and go from there. And I know there'll be more questions later, but that's what I wanted to say for now.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, Allie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie. I live in Western Mass. I have an 8-year-old and a 15-year-old. And what's been going on in the last couple of weeks has really taken me back to when my 15-year-old was 8. And at that point, he was in school. He'd been in school, and there were a lot of signs that maybe it wasn't going to be the right choice for us, but I was kind of trying to hang on for dear life and make it work. And the circumstances escalated to a place where it just wasn't going to work anymore. But I did pull my 8-year-old from school on a Wednesday in the middle of March when he was in 3rd grade. And it was my choice, and it was still really, really difficult. Like, I had in my head what his education was supposed to look like, and I had all of the anxiety about what the school was telling me. And I had all the resources available that LA talked about, parks and libraries and activities, and it was still really hard. So if what you're doing right now feels overwhelming and anxiety producing and stressful, that is exactly how I would expect this to feel. It's just a very difficult thing that you're being asked to do. And these are not ideal circumstances. So I've thought a little bit back to those early months of homeschooling and what I learned during that time. And I had a 2-year-old. That was the other factor involved in that moment in my life. So I thought I was going to go home, figure out how to teach math, reading, writing, science, all of those subjects, all of those curriculums every day, and replicate school for my son. And within a couple of weeks, I was miserable, he was miserable, and I started reaching out to other people and reading and following resources to figure out what was going to give so that we were not unhappy doing things the way we were doing. And that's where I really started to learn a lot of the things that other panelists have mentioned, like the fact that it does not take 6 to 8 hours to cover the material in a school day when you're dealing with 1 or 2 children and not, an entire classroom. And also just things like my son would willingly, excitedly get involved in one thing, and our challenges happened when it was then trying to transition to something else. Because in my mind, I thought, well, we've done this for 45 minutes. It's time to move on. And it took me a little bit of time to realize if he's invested and he's learning and he's caring about what he's doing, let's just keep doing that. Like while it's working, let's just keep doing it and loving that it's working, because the pacing is really different now, right? You don't have to do 5 subjects in a day. If you want to try to cover classroom material and your kid is really engaged in what they're reading and wants to talk about it or write about it with you, there's nothing in the world that says you have to stop them after 45 minutes and start something else immediately. So some of my process was about learning to pace myself, learning to go with my kids' interests, learning to recognize that the kind of traditional systems that I'd grown up with, like if you do this, then the reward will be recess. It actually works really well for kids to get their exercise and fresh air before you ask them to work. And we could spend an hour arguing about how much he needed to do before it was time to go outside, or we could spend a half hour, 45 minutes outside, and he would come in settled and ready to work. And that really hasn't changed. He's 15 now. He still needs to move. He still needs fresh air. So a lot of my process came down to recognizing that a lot of what school is about learning to learn. It's learning how to discover things, how to be curious about things, how to be interested in things and follow through, and where to get information. And to the degree that you can integrate life into learning and not make your academic experiences a totally separate thing from your lives, kids really respond well to that. I wrote a post the other day because I had made soap with my daughter, and you could say we just did a craft together, we made soap, or you could look at the fact that she's 8, she measured, she read all of the directions, she figured out the sequence of things and what order things had to go in to make it work. We talked about heating and the right temperature and turning a solid into a liquid, and having a learning mindset, no matter what you're doing, changes it into a learning opportunity. She had a blast. She wants to do it again. She didn't feel like we sat down and did reading, writing, and math, but we absolutely did reading, writing, and math. And we've done that making cupcakes, and we've done that doing a lot of other things. So a lot of my process came down to that, just learning how it is, how you think it's supposed to look, because most of us grew up going to school, and most of us have an idea about numbers of subjects and numbers of things we're supposed to cover, and it may not always be possible, and that's okay. The final thing I wanted to add is just that no one is an expert in this right now. We have not done this before. We have not parented in the time of a pandemic under quarantine in our homes. So really going back to your center and your gut, and the fact that no one is more of an expert on your family or your child than you are. And if you know that something is not working for you or your kid, it is okay to advocate for something different. No one knows how to do what we're doing right now. Nobody has all the answers, and everybody is doing the best that they can. But at times like this, I think sometimes it's helpful to go inward, take a breath, and give yourself permission to advocate for what works for your family. And I know there will be other things. I know I'm missing stuff, but I'll save it for the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you, friends. So many gems here. I'm going to throw out a couple of questions and see who wants to answer them, and then I'll throw out another pair of questions. But the first questions that I saw sort of repeated were about any thoughts that you all have around sort of structure, any additional thoughts you have around sort of structure or schedule. So we're not being too overly ambitious, but also, having a plan. And then I saw some questions around screens, screen time, broadly. So structure and screens, and then we'll go to some more questions.
I have thoughts about the screens, because especially in this time, I think if you have kids who are old enough to be connecting with their friends, that you've got to ease up on it more than you usually would. I think also that it's pretty important when we're all stuck inside to recognize the we used to, in my house, have unlimited creative screens, even when we had sort of limits on screen time for other uses. So if kids were, animating or coding or digital art, whatever, or, writing or, those things. So I think, you definitely, in this context, want to be really loose about that, I think. But also to recognize that kids, that they shouldn't be in front of the screen all day. that they're young and to get them outside. And in terms of schedule, I think outlining parts of your day that are screen free is a good part of setting up a good routine. You know, that this is the outside time when we're able to be in the yard, if you have one, if you're lucky enough to have that space, or that this is the time when we take a walk, you know, that's a really good thing to put into your routine.
Great. Any other thoughts on this?
I'm a big fan of involving kids in setting a schedule. We don't set a weekly schedule on Sunday, but we do over breakfast talk about what are the expectations for this day, what are the things that need to happen, and I include life things in that, like the dishwasher needs to be emptied, and you know, like you need to shower, and you know, things like that. Partly because it's like there's a feeling of accomplishment when you get the little things done, and also because there's buy-in. You know, if we've sat down together and said, all right, well, this academic piece needs to happen today, when do you think that fits? And they've agreed to a place where that fits. Then if there is a little bit of pushback at some point, it's okay to say, you know, oh, hey, wait, this is what we agreed on. Let's not go back. You know, we can do something different tomorrow. Let's reevaluate tomorrow. But today, let's stick with our plan so that we don't waste our time arguing. I also do think the thing that LA mentioned that is really, maybe someone else mentioned, that is really important is the flexibility. Like, realistically, right now, we're under an enormous amount of stress. Our kids are under a lot more stress than usual. And I am more ready than I've ever been to toss out something that's not working, because I can see that and just hold that and be aware of it.
Great, thank you. The next question that I saw that I think is an important one to address directly is if you all have any recommendations for parents who have children that have or had IEPs in school and are now trying to juggle supporting their kid or kids and working and not having that extra layer of support. So thoughts folks have on that. I also saw another question that was more broadly around special needs and supporting special needs young people. So would love to hear y'all's thoughts on those.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that a little bit to the extent that I can. You know, clearly parents who have kids with IEPs, kids who were getting related services of various kinds are losing, you know, a whole lot more supports. Although I will flag that in some cases, certainly with one of my children, one of my children is neurodiverse, and some of the things that would have required an IEP when that child was younger were some of the reasons we homeschool, because there are things that require, like for example, if you have a child who you know, had a lot of trouble sitting still in a classroom, they don't have to sit still anymore. They could bounce off the walls at home while they're doing their work. There's certain behavior expectations that are different in a home setting that for some neurodiverse kids could be helpful. That certainly was for my child. But there's all kinds of services that you are and supports that you're losing overnight, and then particularly if you're trying to work at home, I know it can be incredibly challenging to juggle all of that. I would certainly encourage you to advocate as much as possible if your school is still open, because there are obviously people in districts where the school is closed altogether, but to see what kinds of support you can get. A lot of rules about things that could and couldn't be done by video have been relaxed. A lot of that is state by state, I think. But you know, there's much more telemedicine, teletherapy. So maybe some of the related services, the speech, OT, I don't know if you could do OT, but ask if you can get those services, and those could also then provide some structure in the day. And I would say, an IEP is an individualized educational plan. I see somebody asking that in the chat. It's a sort of special education lingo. It's a plan for anyone who has a child who has special needs of any kind. which could be anything from like they need particular technology to they need someone working with them one-on-one in particular classes. So yes, so absolutely advocate for whatever you can get in terms of support from the school and resources. The New York City school system, like all of a sudden overnight, they managed to have, tablets for every kid. Like, I've been trying to get an assistive tech evaluation for my kid for over a year and then all of a sudden, boom, they suddenly have all this technology. So, things in this time of crisis, there are some things that are shifting. And I just want to say, for those of you who have kids who are on the autism spectrum, this is a moment to lean into their special interests. Whatever the special thing that they're really passionate about, like, go with that to the extent that you can within your home quarantine, and celebrate that. So that's my 2 cents on this.
And actually, if I can add, there's a whole term for that, which is a unit-based study. If you have to put this into an explanation of what you're doing for your school at some point, if you have a kid who's on the spectrum or a kid who's has a really hard time focusing and sitting still, or you're working with any set of things that would make a child qualify for an IEP, engaging them in what they're interested in and then covering all the things you want to cover through that subject is a whole thing it's a whole approach that is really effective and engaging for the child. So you might think, my kid's obsessed with spiders, how am I going to teach math? But if you think about multiplying spider legs, if you think about diagrams and proportions and, what size are the legs if you blow it up to this size or that size, there's a lot of ways you can be creative and stay within their focused interest and access even really specific curriculum points through that. Yeah.
Anyone else? Are you ready for another question? Okay. Yeah, I saw a couple questions in the chat sort of around any more age-specific insights that people have around teens. People were like, my kid won't listen to me, but will listen to the teacher. What about teens in general? So anything on teens. And then also there was another question that's different, but around competing needs. How do you balance if you've got multiple kids at home with different ages and different needs, how to juggle some of that? Any tips on that?
Well, I can touch a little bit. So I do have 2 children, 2 different ages, one about to graduate high school, one about to go into high school. So I think depending on your age, when they were younger, I could, when one was taking a nap or one was having snack time, I would sit down and be able to work with the other. So you can kind of balance it that way when they're little. Do some things that are together. There's some things that they both have interest in you can do together, and then other things where you can separate. So I would have time with one while the other had their own time, and then reversed it that way. As they get older, depending on the ages, like my high schooler is fairly independent at this point. I'm not really doing that much except for just kind of making sure things are getting done. So that allows me more time to be able to work with my middle schooler. So depending on where they are, you kind of can work your schedule around their interests and also where they are. So if there's some things that you can do together, like if there's a documentary you want to watch, you can do that together, right? But then there's maybe one needs math help while the other one is working on a paper. While that one's working on the paper, I can sit down and do math with the younger one. Teens, yes, teens are interesting, whether they're homeschooled or not. They're interesting. So it's difficult. I think getting them to do work sometimes can be hard. I think what Allie said was perfect. Is I think what helps is when there's a buy-in in the schedule, right? So I sit down and say, okay, so what do we want to learn? What things do we want to do? And so when we start the year, these are the things that you decided. When there's a little pushback, I will mind, well, remember, this is what you wanted to do. And it's a little bit easier to kind of get them into, okay, yeah, that's true. And then I kind of touch base sometimes when I find myself kind of like a lot of pushing and pulling to get things done. We'll have a sit down and we'll just talk and say, okay, what's going on? Do you want to do something differently? Is this not working? Are you, and sometimes, to be honest, teenagers, they don't know why they're pushing back, right? Like they just don't know. They're pushing back, but it's not because they don't like you, or maybe it is, but it's more because they don't know. And sometimes it's just stopping and having that conversation with them and talking to them to get an idea of where the pushback is coming from. Is it that they're not getting it? Are they frustrated? Do they feel like they can't do it? Sometimes it's not that they don't want to do it, it's that they don't understand it and they're frustrated and they don't know how to say that. So instead of saying that, they're just going to fight you, right? I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get this done. And lots of times it's just that they can't get it. And so it's just having that conversation rather than getting frustrated, just having that conversation and saying, okay, let's figure this out.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that for teens, that exactly what Shalawn said is exactly correct, that it's the buy-in is the most important part. You've got to get that buy-in. And right now, I mean, I really, because I work with kids on college admissions, like that's one of my first thoughts for teenagers. And if they are college bound, I think there are some other expectations, and you have to ask your kids, like, what are those long-term goals? And how can we be doing the schoolwork that's going to meet those? Maybe not right this minute, because we're all sort of in this transition, but in a general sense during this period, which however long it lasts. So I think that's, I think looking at those long-term goals, that's a big piece of that. I think it's also that it's okay if just like, we talked about kids following their interests, it's okay for teens to, for you to sit down with them and say, this is your time now. What do you want to do? And figure that out. And it can be hard for them to know. I think that's the other piece, is that they are just pushing and they don't know what they want. And so you have to kind of help them find that project or find that useful use of their time. And for some kids, it is going to be that you help them figure out a schedule so that they can complete that AP class that they are taking, or that math thing that the school sent home, so that they can move on, as they would like to do, to meet the goal to graduate on time, or to get into some college or whatever. But then other times it may just be, well, school didn't send anything and we don't know what we're doing, but you've always wanted to, whatever it is, learn this particular skill, or make this thing, or spend the whole day playing rock music on that guitar in the basement, driving the neighbors crazy, like whatever it is, that's the education, and make goals around that for your teens. And I think it's hard. It's not easy.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna do one final question that was repeated a couple of times, which is around people are curious about sort of online programs that you all have used and recommend, or specific resources, teaching resources that you all would recommend. And then there were actually some interesting questions in the chat around resources, specifically around supporting young people and sort of emotional self-regulation in a time of such anxiety and uncertainty, and physical activity when people are forbidden to go outside. So broad resources, and then if you have specific ones on those two, feel free to share that as well.
I'll just say, because I've seen people mention like Khan Academy and some of these others, I think they're not necessarily bad. But I don't think that online schooling, as a primary method is right for younger kids, period. Like there's not a single online program that I would personally recommend, especially to elementary schoolers. I mean, if your elementary schooler, is going to practice their math facts on Khan or IXL, then that's great. That's fine. If they have a buy-in to do that and you're on board with that, then that's definitely not hurting them. But also, I don't think that sort of an overall online program is right for them. I think that for some high schoolers, that certain things that are online based can be, because they're more mature, they can manage information better. And there are things like massive open online courses that are sort of high school and college level that you can access for free. Coursera and edX are two sources of that for high schoolers. For younger kids, I don't see it except as supplemental. And you know what, right now, if all you get done is supplemental, that's completely okay. But I think, long term, so don't beat yourself up about that, but long term, I just would not advocate that as a core. There's not a single program that I would say is like, oh, this online program is amazing. For anybody who dives into homeschooling, there are live online classes and classes with teachers online, and those I think can be rewarding for kids, but that's a whole different ball game, and you pay for labor. Like there's a cost associated with that always.
There's two reasons.
Go ahead, Allie.
Okay. There's two resources that come to mind that I've been drawing from in the last few weeks and in general. One is a new Facebook group called Quarantined with Kids. Lots of people who are learning how to navigate this are putting up resources. Again, it can be overwhelming. Don't feel like you have to choose something now, but you can get a sense of what's out there. There's also an ongoing Facebook group called Secular Academic Homeschoolers. And a lot of times if you have questions about curriculums or, just general online resources, those have been well vetted there. And it does screen out for the very conservative religious homeschoolers that may not recommend what you would be thinking about. And the other thing I just want to add, this kind of goes in a different direction with this question, but it is also okay to just get through this time. Like, I keep reminding myself every day that these kids are going to remember these months of their life. And I keep asking myself in the moments that are most challenging, what do I want that emotional memory to feel like? Do I want it to be that I'm pushing them aside so that I can research curriculum? Do I want it to be that I'm stressed out and angry all the time? Or do I want it to really be a time of connection and maybe a time where they realize that they really had my presence in a way that that they needed it. And so, one thing that's what's the word? People don't always understand about homeschooling is that it's sometimes a temporary thing, even for homeschoolers. It's not like there are kids who've been homeschooled their whole lives and there are kids who've been to school their whole lives and there's no crossover. Lots and lots of kids homeschool for periods of time and then go back to school and do fine. And some of those kids are homeschooling because their families are on trips and traveling around the world. And some of them are homeschooling temporarily because of an illness. And some of them are athletes or any number of other reasons. Or parents just want to try it out and see how it goes. And then it doesn't work well for them and they go back to the schools. And so schools have integrated homeschoolers back into school for years and years. It's something that happens. It's something that happens even when kids have not been kept up with the exact curriculum that the school intended. This is going to be a little different because they're going to have whole classrooms doing it all together, and we're all going to have to figure out what that looks like. But in the hardest moments, I'm seeing a lot of questions come up in the chat about real fear and anxiety about, I can't do this. And I think that my best advice, I understand the impulse to look outward for what is the thing that's going to make this feel more doable. And I just want to offer that the thing that's going to make it feel more doable might not be a thing you can find online or in a book. It might really be just giving yourself and your kid permission to make this a connective time, make it a time of curiosity and exploration, make it a period of time where you really show up for them in a present way, and understand that no matter where they are academically in a couple or a few months, they're going to be okay. Like, the schools are going to have to navigate this with them. Many, many parents are in the position you are. They're working, they have younger siblings, they're scared, they're sick. There's a lot of people who are unable to meet these expectations right now. And all of those kids are going to be navigating this together and with their school system. And it is okay if all you do is get through this time with your kid. I think that that's just, it's great to talk about the resources, but it's also important to understand that, the answer might not be in those given the circumstances.
Yeah, I really agree with what Allie said, and I want to add that to look like somebody was supposed to, like, my kid's going to watch, I have so much work right now, it's overwhelming. My kid's going to watch TV all day. She's going to be ruined. No, your child is not going to be ruined. She's going to be fine. This right now is not ordinary life. It's okay if there's some days when nothing happens that you would classify as educational. It's okay. It's not going to like fatally damage your child indefinitely. We know what will help your child is the more that you can, even if your day is busy and crazy, if you can have some moments in it when you really connect with your child. That matters much more than any curriculum or any academic thing that they might be doing in that time. And I want to encourage people to look to day-to-day life for opportunities to learn and grow and connect. We're all cooking at home much more. Cooking together is a great, following what Ali said about a unit study, you can think about it as like there's math and there's science, and you can build that learning mindset into it. And you can also just enjoy it and just take pleasure in it. You can, share other household chores like in a different way than you did, in a more connected way. Like if you just do some of that, and that's all you can manage because you're working from home and you're overwhelmed and you're stressed out, it's okay. It's really a time to give yourself permission, as others have been saying, to just get through the days in the most whole way that you can for yourself and your family.
Beautiful. I think those are beautiful final. Oh, would you like to go say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because I did notice that it was mentioned and I didn't want to like ignore it, that someone mentioned about just the thought or the idea of I'm going to mess up my child. And I just wanted to, I think I'm pretty sure all of us on this panel have thought that at some point, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess up my child. And I will tell you, you will not mess up your child. I think that's the biggest pressure that we put on ourselves, but you won't. I think take the time and enjoy it, right? Like LA said, there might be a day where you just don't get anything done. Educational, but that's okay. What I would suggest is maybe at the end of your days or at the end of your weeks, just write down the things that you've done. Anything from cooking to watching a documentary to reading a book. And I guarantee when you look at it, you'd realize, wow, there was a lot of learning that happened. It wasn't the way I thought it would. It wasn't traditional, but there was a lot of learning that happened. And I think that'll help you to feel a little bit better. But absolutely, you're not going to mess up your child. Your child will be fine. And I know for a lot of you, this is going to be temporary, right? When this is all over, most of your children will be going back to school. So I would say take advantage of this time and make memories. This will be something that you'll look back on and say, wow, we had this moment where you were home and you were homeschooled and we had to do all these different things. And remember, we tried to bake a cake and it didn't work out. Like, just take the time to really enjoy this moment, because this might be your only moment to do this. And I think rather than putting all that pressure on yourself, take it as a time to really enjoy, get to know your child in a way that you don't get to know them generally, and just ride the wave.
Beautiful. Thank you, friends. A huge set of gratitude to our panelists, and a huge set of gratitude to all of y'all who are all paddling around in these uncharted waters together. So thank you for everything that you all are doing in all the different ways, known and unknown. So much gratitude to you all on that. I want to say just a couple of final little housekeeping things, and then we're going to wrap this up for the evening. One, I want to let folks know that this call is going to be recorded, and it's being recorded. It will be sent out tomorrow. There's also a ton of amazing resources people are also putting in the chat. So before you sign off, I would recommend scrolling through there. If you are looking for some other juicy nuggets, you might be able to find it in that chat. And that the other thing too, and we're going to sort of figure out the logistics, but that this generous panel has also offered to check back in a couple of weeks and offer another space for dialogue, questions, comments. I know there's a bunch of questions that we didn't get to just because of time and some constraints. So just to know that there's going to be an opportunity to be able to gather again, knowing that we don't know what it's going to be like in 2 weeks from now, and that y'all will have all learned a whole bunch more, and have other questions and and things that you all are dealing with. So just to say that there's going to be a follow-up offer for future conversation. Yeah, and then we'll put a bunch of good things in that email. Of course, the Women's March has a bunch of other webinars and initiatives and organizing that's going on that, of course, we want to continue to do with you and connect you to. And we know that we're all, paddling around literally in the deep end here. So we are grateful to be in community with you and grateful to be able to be in this together. So with that, one final round of gratitude to our panelists and to everybody that stuck with us over the course of this beautiful conversation, and we will be in touch really soon. So thanks, friends. Have a great evening.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
I'm going to end it in just like 1 minute so folks can look at the chat if they want to, the participants. But people are welcome. Y'all are welcome to.
Are we still going to all take a collective breath together? I loved that idea. Can we just all take a deep breath as a group? Thank you.
Cool. All right, friends. We'll see y'all soon. Okay.